Okay, so we're ready for another deep dive, and this time we're tackling unlocking your best self.
Always a good topic.
Yeah, but there's a ton of like advice out there,
Yeah.
and we wanted to focus on like the science behind it all, you
All
know?
right. Cut through the noise.
Exactly. So we're looking at productivity and mindfulness and all that.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that, helps us grow and all that good stuff. And one of the first things that really jumped out, at least for me, was how the source material kind of debunks this idea of like the perfect morning routine.
Yeah, we've all seen those, right? Like the super rigid
Really
schedules.
like drink lemon water and then do yoga and then,
Meditate for an hour.
yeah, and I've tried those things and
They don't always work.
they don't work for me, especially the super early morning stuff.
Well, and the source material actually gets into why that is, talking about chronotypes.
Chronotypes.
Yeah, it's basically like your body's natural sleep-wake cycle.
So like some people are morning people and others are night owls.
Exactly.
Nice.
And it all has to do with like your internal clock.
So like forcing a night owl to wake up at 5 a.m. is basically like
It's fighting your biology.
it's fighting your biology.
Yeah, and there's this really interesting research by Dr. Andrew Huberman.
You know him.
I don't know him personally, but I know his work. He's a neuroscientist. And he found that light exposure within 30 minutes of waking up is super important for regulating your cortisol levels.
Cortisol, that's the stress hormone, right?
It's actually more than just a stress hormone. It's like it kickstarts your day,
Oh.
gives you energy.
Gotcha.
So Huberman found that getting light in that early window can actually boost cortisol by like 50%.
Wow, 50%. That's huge.
Yeah, that's a big difference. And that's why some people feel so much more alert in the morning.
Makes sense.
But if you're not a morning person and you force yourself into that early morning routine,
You're going to feel terrible.
yeah, you're going to feel sluggish. You might even be more resistant to like the benefits of exercise or whatever you're trying to do.
So it's not about willpower, it's about,
Working with your body.
yeah, working with your body's natural rhythms.
Exactly.
I like that.
Find what works for you.
Okay, so we talked about morning routines, but what about procrastination?
Ooh, procrastination.
We all do it, right?
Everyone procrastinates sometimes.
But our source material makes this really interesting claim that it's not just about laziness.
It's about brain chemistry.
Brain chemistry. So like literally what's going on in our brains.
Right. So when we think about a task that seems daunting or unpleasant,
Like doing our taxes.
exactly, our brain, specifically the amygdala, which is like the fear center, it triggers a stress response.
So we're literally stressed out just thinking about the task.
Yeah, and so our natural instinct is to avoid that stress.
And that's why we procrastinate.
We go do something more enjoyable, like scroll through social media or,
Anything but the task.
anything but the task, yeah.
So how do we overcome that?
Well, the source material talks about this thing called the 2-minute rule. Yeah, it's a really simple idea, but it's backed by research from Stanford.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Basically, you just commit to working on the task for just 2 minutes.
2 minutes? That doesn't seem so bad.
Right. It seems manageable, even for the biggest procrastinators.
But how does that actually help?
So what they found is that even just starting the task for 2 minutes can trigger a shift in your brain chemistry.
Really?
Yeah, it's like by engaging with the task,
Yeah.
you're signaling to your brain that it's not actually a threat.
Oh, so you're tricking your brain.
Kind of, you're reducing that initial fear response.
Interesting.
And then as you start working, your brain starts releasing dopamine.
Dopamine, that's the reward chemical, right?
Exactly. It makes you feel good. And that motivates you to keep going.
So it's like those small wins create momentum.
Yeah, you get a little dopamine hit, and then you want to keep going, get another one.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a really cool way to hack your brain's reward system.
I like it. Small steps, big rewards.
That's the idea.
And it all starts with just 2 minutes.
Give it a try.
I think I will.
You might be surprised at how effective it can be.
Okay, so we've talked about morning routines and procrastination, but what about mindfulness? I feel like that's a big buzzword these days.
It is, but it can also be a little intimidating,
Yeah, like meditation and all that.
Right. A lot of people think they have to sit in silence for hours.
Yeah, I'm not very good at that.
Me neither.
But our source material actually suggests a different approach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they talk about these micro-mindful moments.
Mindful moments.
Yeah, basically they're like little pockets of mindfulness that you can sprinkle throughout your day.
Oh, so instead of like a big meditation session, it's more like
Little bites.
little bites of mindfulness. Yeah.
Exactly. And the source material highlights this behavioral therapist named Dr. Emily Anhalt.
I've heard of her. She's great.
Yeah, and she advocates for these micro moments, like just taking a few seconds to really savor your coffee,
Or like feeling the ground beneath your feet as you walk.
or just taking a few deep breaths before you respond to a stressful email,
It's about bringing awareness to the present moment.
even if it's just for a few seconds.
Exactly.
But do those little moments really make a difference?
Well, according to the research, they actually can.
Really?
Yeah, studies have shown that these micro breaks of mindfulness can help reduce anxiety and even improve focus.
Okay, so it's not just some woo-woo concept. There's actual science behind it.
Right. It's about training your brain to be more present and less reactive.
I like it. A little mindfulness goes a long way.
Exactly.
So it's not about being a meditation master. It's about finding those little moments of presence throughout your day.
That's the beauty of it. You can do it anytime, anywhere.
You don't need any special equipment or anything.
Nope, just your own awareness.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground so far, but there's one more thing I want to touch on.
What's that?
Turning failures into fuel for growth.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a tough one, but the source material has this really compelling anecdote about Sarah Blakely.
Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx.
Yeah, you know her.
I know of her, yeah.
So apparently her dad had this unique approach to dealing with failure.
What did he do?
Every week, he would ask her, "What did you fail at this week?"
Wow, that's interesting.
Instead of shielding her from failure, he encouraged her to embrace it.
To see it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. And that's such a powerful shift in perspective.
It is, because failure is often seen as something negative, something to be avoided.
Right, we're taught to fear it.
But what if we saw it as a valuable source of information?
Like feedback.
Exactly. Feedback that can help us grow and improve.
So it's not about ignoring the sting of failure or pretending it doesn't hurt.
It's about acknowledging those feelings and then choosing to focus on the lessons learned.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we reframe failure in a positive way?
Well, the source material suggests a really simple practice. At the end of each day, take a few moments to reflect on one win and one lesson learned.
Like a mini debrief of the day.
Exactly.
So you're highlighting both your successes and your opportunities for growth.
Right. And by doing this consistently, you're training your brain to see failure as a natural part of the learning process.
I like that. It's like turning a negative into a positive.
That's the idea.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this first segment: morning routines, procrastination, mindfulness, and even turning failures into fuel for growth.
It's been a great discussion.
I'm excited to keep diving into this topic with you.
Me too. There's still so much more to explore.
And for those of you listening, I hope you're feeling inspired to unlock your best self too.
We'll be back soon with more insights and strategies, so stay tuned.
See you then? Okay, so we're back, and I'm still thinking about all that stuff we talked about.
Me too. It's fascinating, right?
It is, like all these things, these concepts, they all seem connected somehow.
They are, like when we talked about Sarah Blakely and reframing failure.
Right, and how that can actually release dopamine.
Exactly. It ties into that whole idea of the 2-minute rule.
Yeah, like using small wins to build momentum and motivation,
It's all about understanding how our brains work.
and how they respond to challenges and rewards.
Yeah, when we experience even a tiny victory,
It reinforces that belief that we can actually achieve our goals.
which is super important, especially if you tend to get overwhelmed easily.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm the queen of overwhelm.
But breaking things down into those 2-minute chunks.
It just makes it seem less scary, you know?
Right, it's more approachable.
And as you start racking up those small wins,
Your confidence grows. You start to feel like you can actually do this.
like you have the power to make things happen.
That's the idea.
Okay, I want to circle back to chronotypes for a sec.
Sure.
It's just so cool to realize that our energy levels actually fluctuate throughout the day.
And that working with those natural rhythms can make a huge difference.
It's like giving yourself permission to work smarter, not harder. But how do we actually figure out our chronotype?
Well, there are a bunch of online quizzes you can take.
Oh, cool.
They can help you figure out if you're an early bird, a night owl, or somewhere in between.
And once you know your chronotype,
You can start experimenting with your schedule.
like figuring out when you're most productive and scheduling your most important tasks for those times.
Right, like if you're a morning person,
You might want to do your deep work first thing.
when your focus is at its peak.
And if you're a night owl,
Save those creative tasks for later in the day
it's all about honoring your internal clock.
and not forcing yourself into a mold that doesn't fit.
I've definitely noticed a difference in my own energy levels when I exercise at different times of day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I used to force myself to go to the gym in the mornings.
How did that feel?
Terrible. I was always so sluggish.
But now,
Now I work out in the evenings and it's so much better.
You found what works for you.
Exactly.
It's all about experimentation.
Okay, so we've talked about small wins, chronotypes, and even turning failures into opportunities.
What else is there?
Well, there's one more piece of the puzzle:
Okay, lay it on me.
self-compassion.
Ah, yes, that's a big one.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to be kind to ourselves.
Especially when we make mistakes.
Right, we're always striving for perfection.
But the source material really emphasizes the importance of self-compassion.
As a key ingredient for our personal growth.
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness we would offer to a friend.
Yeah, like if your friend was struggling, you wouldn't beat them up about it.
You'd offer support and encouragement.
So why don't we do that for ourselves?
It's a good question.
And it's not about letting ourselves off the hook.
Or making excuses.
It's about recognizing that we're all human.
We all make mistakes.
It's okay to be imperfect.
And it's about recognizing that we're all works in progress.
This whole personal growth thing, it's a journey.
Not a destination.
There will be ups and downs,
It's about embracing the whole process.
with all its messy imperfections.
I love that analogy of the Japanese art of kintsugi.
You know about that.
Yeah, where they repair broken pottery with gold
Highlighting the cracks and imperfections.
as part of the object's history and beauty.
It's such a beautiful metaphor for self-compassion.
It is. It's about seeing our own brokenness as part of what makes us whole.
Okay, so how do we actually cultivate more self-compassion?
Well, one practical tip from the source material is to practice self-affirmations.
Oh, like those little pep talks we give ourselves.
Exactly. Positive statements that you repeat to yourself
To challenge negative thoughts.
and reinforce positive beliefs.
It can feel a little awkward at first.
It can, but it gets easier with practice.
And the source material says that self-affirmations can actually rewire our brains.
For greater self-acceptance and confidence,
So instead of focusing on our flaws,
we can intentionally focus on our strengths.
I like that.
And another powerful practice is to be more aware of your self-talk.
That inner voice that can be so critical.
If you find yourself constantly judging yourself,
Try to catch yourself in those moments
and gently redirect your thoughts.
towards more compassionate and supportive language.
It takes time and practice.
It's worth it.
Self-compassion is a skill.
Not a personality trait.
We can all learn it.
And the more we practice it.
The stronger and more resilient we become.
Okay, so we've talked about self-compassion, but what about resilience?
Resilience is the ability to bounce back from challenges.
To adapt and thrive in the face of adversity,
It's about not letting setbacks define us.
but using them as opportunities for growth.
And it's not about being stoic or suppressing our emotions,
It's about allowing ourselves to feel the full range of our emotions,
including the difficult ones.
while also recognizing that those emotions are temporary.
We have the strength to move through them.
It's amazing how all these concepts are interconnected.
They are.
We can't talk about productivity without mindfulness and self-compassion.
And we can't talk about resilience without self-awareness and emotional regulation.
It's all part of a holistic approach to personal growth,
Creating a life that feels aligned and authentic,
where we're not just chasing external achievements.
but also cultivating inner peace and fulfillment.
It's a journey worth taking,
Even if it's messy and imperfect,
because it's in those moments of challenge
that we often discover our greatest strengths.
I love that perspective.
It's not about perfection,
It's about embracing the journey,
with all its twists and turns.
knowing that each step is bringing us closer to our best selves.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into unlocking your best self. We've covered so much ground, from those morning routine myth to the power of tiny wins, and even how to use failure to your advantage.
It's pretty amazing what science can tell us about, ourselves.
It is. So as we kind of bring this all together, I'm curious, what's resonated most with you from all this?
For me, it's that focus on self-compassion. It's so easy to be hard on ourselves, especially when we, mess up.
Totally. We're programmed to chase perfection, but I think what we've learned here is that it's more about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. Embracing the imperfection.
And celebrating the small victories along the way.
Because those little wins add up.
They really do.
Yeah.
And it's also about recognizing that everyone's journey is unique.
There's no one size fits all.
No magic formula.
Yeah, it's about figuring out what works for you.
So for everyone listening out there, what's one thing you can do this week to put all this into practice?
Maybe try setting aside a few minutes each day for a micro-mindful moment.
Yeah. Or use that 2-minute rule to finally tackle that thing you've been putting off.
Even small changes can make a big difference over time.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. What if, instead of trying to unlock our best selves, we just focused on becoming more aware of who we already are?
That's deep.
Right. What if it's not about changing ourselves, but uncovering the potential that's already there?
Like we're all these diamonds in the rough, just waiting to be polished.
I love that. And it reminds us that this journey of self-discovery never really ends.
There's always more to learn
Always more to explore.
about ourselves and the world around us.
So as we go our separate ways for now, I want to encourage you to embrace that journey with all its bumps and detours and everything,
Keep learning, keep growing.
and keep shining your light.
Yeah, shine bright. And remember, we're all in this together.
We are. We'll be back next week with another deep dive.
Until then, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep unlocking your best selves.
See you next